the wine needs to arrive to our facility by trucks or by, small containers. The wine comes to us. And then once the wine is in our facility, it goes to a storage tank, stainless steel storage tank, until the process. And the process is either the same day or the next day. And then it goes to this de-alcoholization machine technology, which is called GOLO, low temperature vacuum distillation. The wine is fed into the technology without any air contact, oxygen contact, because there's a vacuum pump. And then the molecular segregation happens. It's a distillation. So we separate 3 fractions.
Hey guys, welcome to Wine, Whiskey and Weed Show. I'm your host, Sid Patel, CEO of Beverage Trade Network and International Bulk Wine and Spirit Show. And today's guest is the guest from, the hottest topic which is going on right now, the de-alcoholized wines or low alcohol wine. I have Irem from BevZero, and we're going to talk about, opportunities in this sector, especially if you are a winery. So Irem, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sid. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on the show.
Super. What's your take on, 2022? What happened, and now what are you predicting different in 2023? Let's just start there.
Oh, wow. It's a very good question and very broad question. So many things happened. But if I may just take it a little bit back to 2020, not just staying in 22, because then it will give us a broad image. So what happened was, obviously, we know that no and low category has been increasing since a decade. But the beer paved the way a decade ago. And then since 5-6 years, wine was picking it up. But obviously, many things have changed until 2020 with the global pandemic. Global pandemic didn't change everything overnight, but it accelerated the change. So the category was already growing, but with everyone being home and in premises expanding, the no and low category also increased. So after that, our business, we have 3 facilities globally: US, South Africa, and Spain. And from our experience in all the locations, our business increased a lot, service business and the equipment business. We got a boom since 2020. And also, if you look at the global stats, in the key markets, the non-alcoholic category increased only last year in 2022, 7%. Versus alcoholic category increased 0.7%. So it's a 10 times more increase. So it's going well. We are obviously happy, but it's going well because it's good to see that the perception of the consumer is changing. And also this increase shows us that the quality has increased a lot, because especially if we speak about no alcohol wine, it's not the same quality since 5 years ago. Everything has improved. The choices are improved, the packaging, the formats, the labels, and the quality of the product a lot. So I think it's a really good sign for the future of the category.
Let's define, what do you mean by low alcohol wine or no alcohol wine? Just break us the legality of definition.
Yeah, so still there are a little bit it's not legally very well defined everywhere, especially, European Union regulations are stricter than the Euro regulations. But what we call no alcohol wine is no alcohol means it needs to be 0.0. So what does 0.0 mean? Depending on your export market, the legislation can change. So in Europe, up to 0.49, it's considered as 0.0.
Got it.
But in US or in Canada, it needs to be 0.0, up to 0.05. So if you are 0.49, then you need to label your product as less than 0.5. So this is the no alcohol category, and low alcohol is anything between 5, 7, 8. So that's what we call lifestyle products, low alcohol products. So depending on the market, this can change. And also if you are in the dry markets, then no alcohol needs to be a halal product. which means it needs to be less than 0.02.
What's moving more, no alcohol or low alcohol?
It's again depending on the market, it changes. Low alcohol is moving a lot in Americas, especially in United States. It's the leading category, but in Europe, no alcohol is moving much more. And then there are markets like US is the category leader for both no and low alcohol. And the UK and Germany is the category leader for no alcohol.
Let's talk about the process, right? That's where you are like really an expert. How is it different from a normal winemaking process? If you can just elaborate first, a basic one-on-one, if we had to educate on how a non-alcohol wine is made.
Yes, actually, you're asking great questions, and actually you are just tackling the questions that also the consumer has in their minds, because the consumer doesn't know what is no, what is low, and they don't know the difference between de-alcoholized wines and alcohol-free. De-alcoholized wines, depending on the alcohol level that you go, it can be alcohol-free, or as we just spoke, it can be a no alcohol-free. De-alcoholization is a process. You can de-alcoholize up to 0.0, but you can also de-alcoholize a portion of the alcohol, which I will just explain in a bit. But alcohol-free wines and alcohol-free wine products, normally what we see in the market is basically it's based on grape juice. When we talk about true de-alcoholized wine, is a product from wine that has been fermented with yeast and then has undergone a vinification process. So we start with our products, incoming products are wine, 10%, 12% alcohol, or anything up to 15. And then it goes to an addition process of having the alcohol removed. So that is the alcoholized wine. But all the other fruit-based products marketed as non-alcoholic wine are simply juice. So they are based on the grape juice. And the difference there on the end product, those products are sweet, because you cannot achieve a dry product based on the juice, because the juice has fructose. But what happens with the fermentation, the yeast consumes all the sugar, and then you can end up with a dry wine. So de-alcoholized wines mostly are dry, or they can be dry because you can start with a dry wine. So that is, I think, is a very important separation. And then in BevZero, what we do is we work with de-alcoholized wines, and then depending on our other locations, we also work with beer and cider. But all products that we start with, they go through a fermentation process. And then with the de-alcoholization, there are various methods to de-alcoholize an alcoholic beverage. And the most common ones today is the membrane technology, spinning cone column, or distillation. We work in BevZero with low temperature vacuum distillation, because as the market for no and low alcohol has evolved and grown, the technology also grown. So in 2015 we introduced low temperature vacuum distillation technology, and it is a single step process that allows for de-alcoholization of the wine, beer, cider down to 0.02, which is called halal level, and at a very low temperature distillation. So there's a high degree of vacuum throughout the process, so there's no contact with the oxygen. And then there's molecular segregation based on the boiling point of alcohol and water, and then they transfer the alcohol molecules. So then we can remove the alcohol if we want, obviously, depending on the needs of the client. If they want to have a product which is 0.02, then we can remove down to 0.02 or 0.01. If they want to have a low alcohol product, then we do a partial de-alcoholization, and then we end up with the 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, the alcohol level that the client wants.
I'm going to break it down on a very, very simple logic, right? Because I'm visualizing in a different way right now, just for the end consumer, as you say. You harvest grapes, you put it in a crusher, right? And then you have a juice which has pulp in it. Then what? What is the next phase? Explain in a very basic, when does your process kick in? Yeah,
our process gets in when the wine is complete. So when we say that we work with wine.
So the wine is already stainless steel tanks, made, actual wine.
Exactly.
And then you take the alcohol out of it.
Yeah, because we don't have, we work with wineries. Either wineries are our clients, or we work with brand marketeers. They can send us the wine, or we can purchase or supply the wine for them, but we need to have the wine ready with the alcohol. Let's say if it is a white wine, the wine has like 10%, 11, 12. If it is red, normally it's like 14, 15, 16, depending on the location. So we have the wine. And if you can, I mean, you can visualize like this is a very physical process.
Okay.
And the technology is a physical technology. It is 5x2, the surface area. And then it is a column of 7 to 9 meters. So this is not a mobile technology in Spain and US. But in South Africa, we have a smaller unit. It's mobile, so it can go to the winery. But in applications, let's say in Spain, I'm based in Spain, the wine needs to arrive to our facility by trucks or by small containers. The wine comes to us, and then once the wine is in our facility, it goes to a storage tank, stainless steel storage tank, until the process. And the process is either the same day or the next day, and then it goes to this de-alcoholization machine technology, which is called GOLO, low temperature vacuum distillation. The wine is fed into the technology without any air contact, oxygen contact, because there's a vacuum pump. And then the molecular segregation happens. It's a distillation. So we separate 3 fractions. Alcohol, and alcohol goes up to 85 ABV. So it's like highly rectified, and it's a byproduct. And then the essence, we can separate almost up to 100% of the aromas and the flavors of the real wine that we call essence. That's a separate fraction. And then we have a 0 alcohol fraction as well. So from those different 3 fractions, once the process is finished, the alcoholization process is finished, they go to 3 different storage tanks. The alkalized one, essence as alcohol, because there's no way to separate the entire aromas from the alcohol, so it has a portion of alcohol, and then the rectified alcohol of 85 ABV. So and then we have our non-alcoholic product.
I think the cost, I'm sure it's hard to achieve a value product, right? Because you're making, anyway, there's a fixed cost, and then you're adding this whole another shipping and bringing it back cost, right?
Yes, exactly.
I was just thinking, what are some growth hacks or some ways to tackle or optimize this process in saving and coming with the lowering your cost of making this?
Yeah, great question again. Yes, exactly. That's why the non-alcoholic products, normally they're higher in price than versus low alcohol products at the same level, at the same segment, because there's an added cost, as you said, transportation, the alcoholization cost, and then because with the de-alcoholization, we separate the alcohol. That is a product that we separate from the real original product. So you have a yield loss. So that's why you need to count that on as well in the final product. So the way saving on this is, when we started 30 years ago in BevZero, we were using a different technology. Spinning column technology is a great technology as well, but the yield loss of that product is 30%.
Wow.
So you send us 100 liters of wine, and then you were losing 30 liters because it was going to the alcohol, and then you end up with 70 liters. So it was, again, increasing the cost. So since 2016, when we started to work with low temperature vacuum distillation, our alcohol is rectified. So yield loss is 15%. So instead of 30%, the client loses only 15%. So you have a less yield loss. So with this process, our clients save significant amount on that. And also the process that we have, I mean, there are obviously additional costs, like the electricity, the water consumption, everything. So the process that we use is like the most green process, and then it has minimal water use. It's very energy efficient and small carbon footprint. So these are an additional ways to save a few pennies on the product, maybe a few dollars, depending on the suppliers that you work with. And obviously what is really important is bulk shipment. So many clients, they don't want to ship the product in bulk, they want to ship it in bottles. It's a choice, obviously, but if you ship the product bulk and then bottle in the consumer market, then you are going to save so much with the transportation. And the transportation is the big chunk of the cost on this product. So
yeah, I was just thinking that, like, if you're buying bulk wine, and your goal is this, you can buy bulk wine in one country, get it to your facility, and then you ship the finished product to, the buyer or maybe wherever directly, right? So
Yeah,
you're just
definitely.
one stop in the middle at least.
Exactly. And also if you ship bulk product, you can ship 26,000 liters pure wine, and then you bottle at the destination. But when you ship the bottled product, so in the same amount of space, you cannot fit 25,000 liters, because you have your bottles, you have your, the weight of your bottles. And also these bottles, I mean, most of the time, it's very interesting. Most of the times those, I mean, obviously there are so many glass production manufacturers, but most of the time they come, let's say, from China to Europe.
True.
And then you bottle in let's say Europe, and then you send it back to China. There's so many logistics behind it, and
You can't ship bulk wine, non-alcohol, low-alcohol wine back in flexi tanks, or can you?
Yes, you can.
You can, right?
Ship it like flexi tanks. Yeah,
Okay.
You can ship like the flexi tanks or IBCs. There are IBCs as well, like 100 liters, starting from 100 liters. Or flexi tanks, a few thousand liters, and then you can ship up to 26,000 liters.
So doesn't it make like common sense to just find a bulk wine supplier which is closest to your facility in that vicinity? If I want to get Spanish no alcohol wine, I would just find close people. Does that matter?
Yeah, exactly. That's also again another great question. It feels like you have been in the category for a long time, Sid, because you tackle like really great questions. Yes, that totally makes sense, because proximity, again, 0 kilometers. So we purchase, or the wineries can purchase, or wineries around us, or the brand marketers can purchase the wine close to us. And then it's shipped to us, very proximate destination. And then the transportation cost will be really minimal. And then the carbon footprint will be minimal. And then we do the process, and then we can obviously bottle it, or we can send it bulk. And if the wine goes to France, it's obviously better to send it bulk. And also the other thing is, there are like in Europe, there are 3 big wine producing countries: Spain, Germany, Italy. But the bulk wine, the heart of the bulk wine, mostly comes from Spain in La Mancha region, in the center of Spain. And our facility is right there. It's like right in the heart of the Spain. So that's why we have really, great connections with the wineries.
For a winery, right? Like, what is the capital investment you're looking at if they want this whole process in-house, instead of doing this whole small batch shipping and whatnot? Like, let's just go broader, right? Let's say I've made a strategic decision to invest maybe 500,000 or $1 million, and this is my ROI, meaning like I need to sell this much, and in 3 years I'll break even. Like, give me some numbers, for an in-house strategy.
There are the wineries, as you said, they can either send their wine to a service provider like us, but if they have enough volume, and if you want to they make the investment, obviously they can purchase the de-alcoholization technology. There, as I said, there are different de-alcoholization technologies. The price differs, but there's I can say that the most economic one is reverse osmosis, but with the reverse osmosis, you cannot go down to 0.0. You can go down to 0.0, but for every degree of alcohol that you want to remove, you need to do multiple passes, and it is not a very sustainable process. So vacuum distillation or spinning column, they are the best technologies to go down to 0.0. There are different models of the units, but it starts from, let's say, 500,000 roughly, and it can go up to 1 million, 2 million. So this is the investment that the winery needs to make. And so to make this investment, for the return on investment, what we recommend is, like, if a winery has, let's say, almost 1 million liter or 500,000 liter per year to de-alcoholize, then that's a good investment to consider for them, and actually it's thinking about, like, mid and long-term plans. But if a winery has 100,000 liters to de-alcoholize, then it's not a good investment for them, because they need to also think it's not about the equipment only. The facility needs to be designed around that. They need to have, the chillers, the boilers, the vacuum pumps. We also, if a winery wants to make this investment, we also help them to design. But it's not only just taking one equipment and putting it. It's not really that simple. So yeah, that's why it's really important, the volumes that we are talking about. Otherwise, there are service facilities, service providers that the wineries can start working with. And then once they build up the volume, then they're ready to make the investment, I think.
Are you a monopoly, or are there companies like you in this process? Obviously you may have a patent process, but I'm just overall, if I'm just Googling companies that can help me with this process, give me some names, just to help out the wineries.
Yeah, so yeah, we have our patented process, but again, we are not the only de-alcoholized service provider, depending on actually the location. In South Africa, we may be one and only, and California, in the region that we are, I think, I don't know if there's another one in the area, but in Europe, obviously, in Spain, in Germany, in Italy, in France, there are other providers as well, but which is really good because it shows that the category is increasing, the category is growing. As the category is growing, service providers are obviously increasing as well. So I don't have the top of my mind the names, but I think lately, if you just if a winery wants to do a de-alcoholization, if they write on Google de-alcoholization service company in Spain or in Italy or in France, I think it's easy to find it, because everything is that kind of increasing, and then search engine optimization is really getting really good. So I think they can reach to many different service providers depending on their location, which is easier for them.
Got it. Let's say you were hired by a winery and you were given a scope of, hey, let's add this vertical, right? Let's add this in a business strategy. What kind of a business model comes to your mind on how you would add this? An example is O'Neill or Delicat or some big company which has a volume, which has a buyer like Walmart's, wants to just set up a business case that, okay, we're starting this. So what I want to know is what kind of services they can start offering. Now, what comes to my mind, one example, and you can continue from there, is literally I can offer a custom labeling service of a private, no alcoholic brand. I can source bulk wine from Argentina and give it to Walmart. It's the same process which you guys do. I'm doing in my winery now, but using your technology and process. So what other things, I just want to know the business models around this whole thing, which they can expand into.
So, sometimes obviously the wineries, that is like wineries who are in the business, a conventional winery who produce alcoholic wines, it may be easier for them because they're already in the business. They know the markets, they have their importers, distributors. So they want to do a line extension with non-alcoholic products. So for them, it may be easier, but also they're brand marketeers. They have just the idea, but they don't have the product, they don't have any distribution channels. So for them, I think it may be more difficult to kind of go in which direction. So obviously they have the idea, they have their brand, which is really important. Obviously today, the brand, the history, the story, the storytelling is super important. I think that is, everything. Yes, obviously you're doing an alcoholic wine, but you need to have your story. You need to have your great brand. And also today, it's not only enough just having non-alcoholic wine. With everything changing, mindfulness consumer, healthier consumer is the consumer wants less carbohydrates, less.
Yeah, I think it's an image direction as well, right? You're getting credibility in the image, in the direction with this carbon, eco, whatnot, right?
Exactly. Sustainable brands, sustainable packaging. And what is really important is low sugar. Before 5-6 years ago, to balance the alcohol missing of the product, what the wineries were doing, they were adding sugar. But it's not what the consumer wants anymore. And it's not even healthy. You're trying to make a healthy product with no alcohol, but then you're adding so much sugar. So we help our clients to do as dry as possible. We don't rely on sugar. And also one of the things that we achieved in 2021, 2022, getting a non-alcoholic, very balanced product without almost no additional sugar. So, in one glass of wine, they can have 5-6 calories versus 120, 150 calories of alcoholic wine. So I think that is really important, the product. But once you have the product or storytelling, then what is the next step to go? Which markets you will sell into? What is going to be your distribution strategy?
So tell me that, what are the hottest, I want to give more context to UK and US, right? So in UK, which kind of suburbs or which cities or which kind of retailers are adding this more? In US, what kind of retailers? I can imagine Target doing this, because they're just moving towards that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But give me some names of retailer and states adopting to more of this demand.
So if you talk about UK, and obviously the Waitrose, Tesco, Morrison's, Aldi, Lidl, I mean they're all in the there's big retailers who are giving importance. And Marks and Spencer, they have their own sections. They have their own aisles for no and low, but then there's also premium category, Harvey Nichols. There's also, they have their, if you're in the premium category, it's also a great place to go. And then they're also like, small boutique independent retailers, organic retailers. That is also a great place to look for.
What about restaurants? Are they also adding in the menus?
Yes, the restaurants are adding in the menu. And for example, I was like in 2021, November, when I was in the UK, I went to Disham in London. Do you know Disham? Disham is like an
Disham, the Indian restaurant, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was so amazed
nice one,
with their non-alcoholic menu, because before you would have in the drinks menu, you would have a section non-alcoholic, but they have a complete separate menu. They call it sober menu. They have non-alcoholic wines, non-alcoholic beers, and non-alcoholic cocktails, and it was like 6 pages of menu. So it was great. I mean, now there are restaurants giving more focus on that, and there are some wine bars only non-alcoholic wines. For example, in Dublin, there's a bar called Virgin Mary. It's only non-alcoholic. And in US, there's Boisson. Boisson is a distributor, non-alcoholic distributor only, and they have their shops and also, the tasting places. When we talk about distributors, I think what is also really important for the brands or the wineries for this product, first, what I would recommend, they should go omni-channel distribution strategy, off-trade or on-trade, depending on the segmentation. But e-commerce is super important. It can go on an e-commerce marketplace, or it can go direct to consumer, their direct online channels, and the distributors. Distributors at the moment in the distribution, there's a gap, especially for wine, because what is normally known, since it's a non-alcoholic wine, going with a wine distributor. But wine distributor is the person who gives, or wine buyers gives obstacle to this product. So some wineries or some brands, they go with the beverage distributor.
Yeah, I would go with Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
Whoever has the highest doors, because you can sell at every place. One question comes quickly to my mind is, why would Southern or Walmart or Tesco not do this directly with you? Because of the 3 tiers and all that.
Yeah, as far as I know, some of the retailers, for example, I think Tesco has their white label. So some retailers, they do directly with the producer to create their white label. And we also offer white label or private label. So this is, they already do big retail channels. They do their white label.
That's a big, that I see as a big threat or competition now, because Walmart doesn't need O'Neill to get this job done.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good point. Yes, they can directly. I think this is also depending on what consumer wants and the opportunities and the wide variety. So now, as the consumer is educated and have a demand, they want to see a variety of products. So Walmart or Tesco can do white label, so they can work with a supplier directly or service provider instead of getting the brand, but there's going to be Tesco brand or their brand. But sometimes this category is also driven by brand names. So the consumer wants to see the brand that they recognize. For example, from Torres has Sangre de Toro. It's an conventional wine, but also Sangre de Toro has no and low alcohol wine. And the consumer knows the name of Sangre de Toro, and then when they want to buy a non-alcoholic wine, they know the brand and they go to that. So still, it doesn't really create much competition for brands, because brands need to be there, while Tesco or Walmarts can have their own white label.
Hope you guys had a good time listening to this video. If you're a winery trying to look into this, or even if you're a buyer, looking to get into making a private label, BevZero can help you. Meet them at International Bulk Wine and Spirit Show in San Francisco and in London, and see how they can help you make your non-alcoholic wines.